If you are somebody who wants to lose weight, or if you're on a health journey, but every time you step on the scale, you get scale anxiety, or you get anxiety weighing yourself, or you get discouraged because you feel like you're doing everything right, you're eating right, you're working out, you're more active, but the numbers on the scale are not budging, and then it's triggering to you because obviously none of that makes sense, then you need this device right here. This device actually allows you to stop obsessing over your weight and start paying attention to and focusing on the things that really matter, the things that are going on inside of your body, like your muscle composition, your fat composition, your skeletal muscle mass, your hydration, your water weight, your bone mineral content, and then so much more. I actually think that every person in the world, if you want to stay on top of your health and you want to get the full picture of what's going on inside rather than just the number on the scale, then you should definitely invest in this device right here. This has been such a game changer in the way that I look at weight and the way that I look at my health. And so let me tell you all about it. So I'm actually gonna put a picture of it right here because I don't wanna have to keep holding it. Even though it's very lightweight, I still don't wanna have to hold it. Anyway, I don't even wanna call this a scale because it's way more than a scale. It's a body analyzer. It's actually made by a company called Hume Health, and it's called the Body Pod. By the way, this video is in collaboration with Hume Health. They are sponsoring this video, but this one was a no-brainer for me. As a matter of fact, when I read the email, I went straight over to the website. I was there for maybe about 5 minutes, and then I was like, absolutely, send this to me because this is right up my alley. I'm very, very health conscious. And, you know, I'm always trying to stay on top of my health. I'm always trying to get my blood work done, especially as we age. I feel like it's so important. So again, this was just kind of a no-brainer for me. I was so intrigued by what it said that it offered, and I knew that you guys would love it too. This device right here not only gives you your weight, of course, but it also gives you in-depth medical insights into your overall body composition. It measures your body composition in an accuracy of, I want to say 98% compared to like a DEXA scan that you would have to go into a medical facility to get. But then on top of it, you get, it's either 40 or 45, I know it's over 40, I think it's 45 different health metrics with medical grade accuracy. And the best part about it, obviously, is that you don't have to go anywhere to get it. You just have to step on the scale, hold on to the little retractable handle there, and within less than a minute, you have all that information right at your fingertips. But y'all, this scale, this little body analyzer is so addicting, but in a good way. And I think that if you're gonna be addicted to anything, you might as well be addicted to your health. And that's what I love about this device, because you're not only keeping track of your weight, you're actually keeping track of your health and what is going on inside of your body. So in order to use this scale, the first thing that you have to do is you actually have to charge it, and it does come with a charger. Then you have to download the Hume Health app, and then you have to sync the app to your scale through Bluetooth. Once you have synced your app to your scale, then you just stand on it and you pull on this retractable little handle right here, and you lightly grip it on either side. And then within less than a minute, you have, like I said, 40 plus, I think it's 45 different health metrics that you can go through your app, and you'll have to just kind of teach yourself how to navigate the app. It's pretty simple, it's kind of self-explanatory, but there is so much information, and it's really mind-boggling. It just gives you a whole different perspective of your weight. It's not just about weight, it's about everything that makes up your weight. That's the most important part. Okay, so now the way that it works, and I'm definitely gonna have to read this part right here because there's just no way I'm gonna be able to memorize this. It's a little bit over my head, but it uses multi-frequency bioelectrical impedance analysis. It's called BIA, and it uses 8-point tactile electrodes through your feet and your hand grips, and multi-frequency currents to measure impedance throughout your body, your legs, your torso, and your arms. And it provides full segment body composition rather than just lower body readings. That's what it says right here. And then, like I said, in less than a minute, it gives you a full breakdown of your body composition. And the best thing is that it keeps record. So you get to check your progress from day to day, from week to week, from month to month. And that's why this device is so beneficial. Now on the actual scale, right away, it gives you your weight. And then it also gives you your resting heart rate, which I thought was so interesting. And you do want to try to weigh yourself at the same time every day. And I would even suggest doing it before you have your coffee. I have noticed that when I weigh before my coffee, my resting heart rate is a lot lower than when I weigh after my coffee. And right there, just that alone, that piece of information, I'm like, wow, how interesting is that my coffee is like increasing my heart rate right away. Okay, so now I'm gonna put some screenshots, or maybe I'm gonna screen record, I'm not sure. Just some of the information and data that it collects. So the first thing that you're gonna see is your health score, and your health score is based on 3 things: your body composition, your activity level, and your sleep patterns. Me personally, I just kind of ignore the health score because I don't track my sleep patterns, nor do I track my activity. If you do, like if you have a smartwatch or if you somehow track your sleep patterns, you're also gonna want to sync your app to those apps so that you can get a full in-depth health score. Otherwise, like for me personally, my health score looks like it's low, but that's okay, because if it's low and it slowly gets higher, then that means all of the other data that it has collected is improving. Like I'm improving in all of the other areas. So even if you have a low score that you think, I'm not sure if that's accurate or not, you can still track the progress. You can still track your progress to see if you're doing things better or worse for yourself, just based on whether those numbers are going up or down, you know? Now, right underneath your health score, you're just gonna see some basic information. You're gonna see your weight, you're gonna see your metabolic age, your skeletal muscle mass, and your body fat percentage. Now, my weight obviously is 109.9. My metabolic age is 46, which is actually really good seeing as how I'm 52. So if your metabolic age is lower, then you're healthier than most people your age. And so that's kind of good news. Now my skeletal muscle mass is actually showing that it's low, which means that's something I need to improve on. I was actually a little concerned about that number because I was thinking, there's no way my skeletal muscle mass is low, because I'm 110 pounds and I would consider myself to be pretty fit. And actually ChatGPT did agree with me and gave me reasons why that number might be low. I will explain the discrepancies in some of the information in just a minute, but first I just want to show you, everything, all the information that this app has to offer. So if you scroll down just a little bit past that first little section of basic information, you will click on more details. There's like arrows right there. Oh my gosh, it takes you to this other page where there is so much in-depth information about your body composition, and it's broken down into sections, and each section has another arrow that you can push to give you more information about what those numbers mean. So for example, the first little section there is just for weight and BMI, and it says that my weight is 109.9 and my BMI is 19.2, but there's a little arrow in that little section. If you click on that arrow, it takes you to another section that just kind of explains to you what things make up your weight and what exactly BMI means and whether or not it's important, And so each section, if you click on the arrow in that section, you get even more detailed information about what your numbers mean to you and as far as the general, population is concerned. So now I'm just going to scroll through some of the data that it collected for me so that you can see just how in-depth it is. So obviously it starts with your weight. I'm 109.9. That's considered standard. My BMI, my body mass index, is 19.2. That's considered standard. My body fat percentage, so it does percentage and then by pounds. So my body fat percentage is 23.3%, and that's considered low. My body fat mass is 25.7 pounds, which is considered standard. My lean mass is 78 pounds, which is considered standard. Lean mass percentage, 71, standard. Subcutaneous fat mass. Subcutaneous fat is the fat that's just right beneath the surface of your skin. And that is 22.3, and that's considered low. Subcutaneous fat percentage, 20.3%. And then we get to visceral fat. And my visceral fat index is 5, and that is considered low. You want that number to be low. When you have too much visceral fat, and your visceral fat is the fat that surrounds your organs, it can be very detrimental and it can be very harmful to your health. Too much visceral fat can actually increase inflammation in your body. It can also raise your risk of chronic disease like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, stroke, Alzheimer's, even certain forms of cancer. And then it can also interfere with hormone regulation. And all of these are things that we should really be concerned with, especially as we age. And then you can see it collects data for skeletal muscle mass minus 45.2 pounds. That's actually considered low. I'm going to explain that in a minute. Then my skeletal mass is actually 17.3 pounds, which is considered high. And that's a good thing because your skeletal mass is your bones. It's what makes up your bones and your joints and your cartilage. It just makes up the structural framework for your body. So you definitely want that to be high because we're talking about your bones. And then it collects data for your bone mineral content and your body water percentage. That's another one that I really like to focus on because you know, there's so many times where sometimes you jump on the scale and you're like, oh my gosh, did I gain weight? And a lot of times it's just water weight. But with this scale, you'll know exactly what's going on because if your water percentage is, let's say it's at 40 normally, and then all of a sudden you hop on the scale and it's at 60 or 70, then you'll be able to say like, oh, okay, so I'm just carrying around some extra water weight. So that's so interesting. It just gives you a whole different perspective when it comes to, you know, your weight. Okay, y'all, but here's where it gets really cool. If you click on this little tab over here where it says body, it literally opens up a little diagram and it shows you this little humanoid and it shows you the breakdown of your fat and muscle composition and where it's distributed, like in your arms and your legs and your torso. And it'll also show you if there's any imbalance. For instance, my right leg has 0.5 more pounds of muscle than my left leg. And that makes sense to me because I have a bum left leg. And so I probably overcompensate on my right. So now whenever I work out, I'm just going to be like, okay, I've done, 10 reps on this side. Let's do 15 on this side each time, just to build that leg just a little bit more so they're more balanced and more equal, because you do want balance in your body, especially as we age. Now this shows you muscle, but then if you click on fat percentage, it'll show you the distribution of fat in your arms and your torso and your legs also. And oddly enough, my left arm has almost 3% more fat than my right arm. Which again, I'm right-handed, so I probably use that arm a lot more. I know that I do. And it's probably gonna be stronger and I don't think it said that I had more muscle, it just said that I had more fat in my left arm. I'm like, that's weird. So those are just a couple of things that I can work on now that I've seen, the breakdown. Now I already talked about visceral fat and how I like to, make sure that that stays low. But two other very important ones for me are also going to be muscle mass and fat percentages. And they should be for anybody who's on a weight loss journey, because I know that there's so many times where, like I said, you feel like you're doing everything right. You're eating right, you're working out, you're staying active, but the numbers on the scale are just not moving. But when you have a scale like this, you have more insight. You can see that, oh my gosh, okay, my muscle mass has gone up and my fat percentages have gone down. So regardless of what the scale says, you know that you're moving in the right direction because you're watching the progress and you're watching the numbers go down that you want to go down and the numbers go up that you want to go up. And that's really what matters most. And you will see it on your body also. But I think that's why most people have scale anxiety, or they get discouraged when it comes to the scale, because you can't see that on a typical scale. So I feel like that right there is like one of the biggest selling points of this scale, just to be able to see that data that you would not be able to see unless you went to a high-end gym where they can do like an in-body, what is it called? Like an in-body scan, or you go to a medical facility where they do a DEXA scan. Otherwise, you're just left to seeing the number on the scale, and it's just not enough. Another one that I really want to stay on top of, I feel like I want to stay on top of all of them, but is my skeletal mass and my bone mineral content, because that we're talking about our bones, and especially as we age, if you want to be able to prevent something like osteopenia or osteoporosis, then you want to make sure that your bone density is good and your skeletal structural framework is healthy. And so if you see that declining, then you can start doing some more strength training, or, look up things to help with bone density. And so, so that's another one that I'm so glad that now I have that information available to me and I don't have to go somewhere else to get it, even though I still might. Every year I still do blood work from, head to toe and stuff like that. I've never done like a full body scan, so this is all kind of new to me, and it's so interesting and I love it. Now, I did want to be honest about something. I was not happy about the fact that it said my skeletal muscle mass was considered low at 45.2 pounds. I'm only 110 pounds. I was thinking, that doesn't seem very low to me. Not just that, I feel like I'm a pretty fit woman. So I actually took that information to ChatGPT because I was like, could this, be wrong for some reason, And as a matter of fact, ChatGPT, his name is Jet, I named him. Jet told me that it would not be considered low, especially for somebody my height, my weight, and my age. But there are certain things that could skew certain numbers. So one thing that it said, I'm just going to read to you exactly what it said. As far as my first question, it said, for a petite, lean, fit woman in her 50s like you, scales like this might underestimate skeletal muscle mass because they often rely on general population algorithms. So while the number might seem off, tracking trends and progress over time is what really matters. And I definitely agree with that. Because like I said, even if a number doesn't seem right to you, if you're moving that number in the right direction, that's what should really matter. But even though, I thought that answer was okay, I was still thinking, but why is it still, I know that kind of makes sense to me. But what could also be skewing that number a little bit? And then I thought, oh my gosh, what about my implants? Like, how is this body analyzer reading my implants? So I actually went back to Jet and I asked him if my implants could be skewing the numbers. And he said, yes. He said, your silicone implants could very likely be skewing your Hume Health body pod results, making it look like your skeletal muscle mass is lower than it actually is. It says breast implants can result in an underestimation of skeletal muscle mass because the implants throw off the internal calculations, especially if the algorithm assumes that the added weight and volume is you and not a synthetic material. And then it says they're not counted as fat or muscle, but their presence distorts the math behind those estimates. So anyway, I'm glad that I asked ChatGPT about that information because that actually made me feel a lot better. Because at first I was thinking, oh my gosh, I can't possibly eat better. I could work out more, I guess, but I don't want to. And so I was like, no, oh my gosh, am I gonna have to work out so much more because my skeletal muscle mass is considered low? But I'm still going to watch that number and I'm still going to try to move it in the right direction. And that's going to be interesting to see if I can. And it's going to be so motivating too, I think. I think once you start seeing those numbers improve, that's what's going to keep you on track and that's what's going to keep you so motivated. Anyway, I feel like this little scale and this app, it's almost like having your own personal little doctor and wellness coach, at your fingertips. I just think it's so innovative. So if you want to keep track of your health and not just your weight, or if you want to get a better understanding of what's going on inside of your body instead of just relying on the numbers on the scale, then this body pod is for you. And I did want to say also that you can actually connect up to 24 friends and family to your scale. They just have to download the app also and then sync it to your scale, and they'll get the same data and the same progress reports. So I do have a discount code, and my discount code is just my name, Jenifer. Jenifer is spelled with one N. That gets you 20% off the Hume Health website, site-wide. And when you stack it on top of other discounts, you can get up to 50% off. So it's a really good deal. And I'm telling you guys, this is such a wonderful piece of equipment. I think everybody should own one. I really do, especially if you're on a health journey, and you should be on a health journey. Your health should be the most important thing to you. Now, I did want to say, if you have an HSA or an FSA, then it could cover the entire cost of the body pod. So you might want to look into that because, like I said, this is such an investment. It's an investment for your health. I did also want to say that my discount is only valid for 7 days. And so you might want to hop on it as quickly as possible because you don't want to miss out.